So, welcome to the Finca Chocolat Belize Caribbean Capital Group offering. This is more of an update and inviting people who might want to, learn more about it, and if they're interested, invest. And so the team is myself. I'm stumbled in Belize around 2004, and a few years later moved here in 2010. Started at Remax. Started at the bottom, worked my way up, and then met some of my mentors, Robert Kiyosaki, Kyle Wilson, the real estate guys. And that sparked my interest in investing through group investing or syndication as we know it, if you know that word. So today I have $30 million assets under management, helping investors invest into Belize passively. And everything is in Belize that I invest in right now, syndication wise. And then we have my partner, David. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Thank you all for being here tonight. David, thank you for setting this up. So I came to Belize in 2006. I'm originally from the US. I have been self-employed for about 30 years now in different industries. I have founded, grown, and sold about four companies to date, all of them successful and, and ongoing for two of the four, actually. I am the managing director and founder of Finca Chocolat. I put together the financing for the farm back in 2015 when we bought it, and I oversee the strategic direction and sales and marketing for the farm.
Very good. And then our other team member is Mike Pine, who is my CPA. He's here in Texas. And also we have, of course, my securities lawyer that keeps us, legal with the syndication. And speaking of legal, she always wants me to make sure that we have this disclaimer that basically this is a business plan. It contains private and confidential information. There's no unauthorized use of this, and we are going to give some forward-looking statements, but this tonight is not an offer. It's just getting you interested, and if you are interested, it's educational. If you are interested, then there's another step you can go to, which is the PPM or the Private Placement Memorandum, and you can read that, and then, so if you're interested, you can do that. So this is just again for informational purposes only. And what we're offering is projected returns of 12 to 14% annualized. The minimum investment for now is $20,000. My contact information is here, and this is a SEC registered 506C exemption, which for US persons. But we do have a Reg S for worldwide participation. If you know somebody that lives outside the US and they're not on this webinar, then reach out to me. We can't take anybody that's outside the US that is on this webinar. So there are strict rules that we have to follow. What does 506 mean? It basically means that we can take as much money as we want. This is about a $17 million raise. We do it in $20,000 chunks up to $17 million. We do have to do third-party verification. So I just can't take your word that you're accredited. I have to do a third-party verification, but we have a company that will do it. And it's very simple, and the whole process is really simple, and we hold your hand every step of the way. Some of you might not know what accredited investor is, and what it means is that anyone who has a net worth over $1 million that's not including their primary residence, individually or with a spouse, is an accredited investor. Or, not and, but or, you have income of $200,000 individually, 300,000 with a spouse or a partner, in the last 2 years with the reasonable expectation of doing the same in 2025, then you are accredited. If you're in this webinar and you know somebody that's not accredited, the SEC just recently pull out information on how to get accredited, and it will be through education. So we will definitely have some means for you to take this education, take the test, and then you can become accredited no matter, whatever stipulations they have. They haven't put out the rules and regulations yet. That's what we're waiting on, but they are going to pretty much do that. So pretty much anybody that has the wherewithal can get accredited if they're not already. But in the meantime, until that happens, if your net worth is $1 million, not including your primary residence, or you make $200,000 in the last 2 years with the reasonable expectation to do that in 2025, you are accredited. So why Belize? We say Belize is international investing on training wheels. It's the fastest growing Caribbean country for tourism, and it's one of the top tourist destinations in the world for many reasons. And we'll go over what some of those reasons are, such as its English speaking, its close proximity to the US. And so the US is majority of who we get. It's a stable government. It's a two-party system, just kind of like the US, not as far apart as the US. And tourism represents only about 30% of Belize's GDP. The rest of it is agriculture and seafood export. That's the second largest contributor to the GDP. And it's from, like I mentioned, agriculture in Belize was 144 billion or million with a M, sorry, in the fourth quarter of 2024. We have 109 million acres of land that is being developed for investing in agricultural business, roughly. And we talked about the easy accessible from the US. You can come via land, air, sea, strong international relations, stable government we talked about. And it's also predominantly, it's the only English-speaking country official language in Central America and Latin America. We have a large skilled labor force, and our currency is pegged to the US dollar, which is huge. It doesn't fluctuate like Mexico and some of the other places. The real estate is affordable still, and it's in high demand, and the appreciation rates are really off the chart over the last few years. I've seen people, I mean, I bought a piece of land for $75,000 5, 6 years ago, and now it's worth 300,000, 100 acres in Mango Creek. So the property laws apply to both Belizeans and foreigners equally, which is very unlike other areas that are neighbors. And one of the biggest, it's a low tax jurisdiction. So there's no capital gains tax, no estate tax, and our income tax is only 3% for farm revenue. And also privacy. Belize possesses some of the strongest privacy banking laws in the world and decided not to sign the information sharing tax treaties with the US. And so why do the wealthiest 1% invest in agriculture? Um, Not sure if everyone knows, but the top private landowners in 2025 include very notable figures as the Emerson family. They have over 2.4 million acres. They do timber, things like that. John Malone has 2.2 million acres. He does telecommunications. And then everybody knows who Ted Turner is. He has 2 million acres. And so it's no surprise that an estimated 30% of all US farmland is owned by people, but they don't farm it themselves. Like none of these guys farm it themselves. They all farm it out or rent it out, right? And that's according to the Department of Agriculture. And while I'm on this slide, let me just add that every picture on here, except for one, I believe, is of the farm itself. So enjoy what you're seeing. Everything is on the farm and has been taken, pretty recently within the last couple years, all the way up to we have some that was taken, just the last couple weeks. So enjoy that. Again, 2020, Bill Gates made headlines for becoming the largest private landowner in the United States. He's already, been dethroned of that, but he has accumulated 269,000 acres in 18 states. Jeff Bezos, the Ford family, and others have now surpassed Bill Gates. So even today, the top 1% are buying as much farmland as they can. So the question is, what about you? What about anyone that you care about? Somebody that you can recommend that might be interested in getting in at a low price. You know, if they can't afford to buy the land themselves and do anything with it, you know, they can come alongside us and we can take them in and help them and let them make a profit off of the land that they own with all of us together. The global agriculture market is valued at $15.7 billion in 2025 and is projected to grow to 23.38 billion by 2029. And the compound annual growth rate is 10.2% during this period. So agriculture is a science, it's an art. Farming requires skilled workforce, a combination of real assets such as labor, equipment. Of course, you need the land. We need the, Mother Nature, if you will. It's an industry that can be grouped together with other real assets, such as forestry, timberland, real estate, infrastructure, precious metals. So you can have a diversification. You don't have to have just land. You can bring it in. Like I have gold and silver, I have real estate in different countries. You can definitely bring it all in and have a diversification of your investments. We don't want anybody investing 100% of their investment. We won't allow it, right? If you have a $2 million net worth and liquid assets, we wouldn't take all that, right? We would only meet with you and only take a portion of it. Let you have diversification, and we can tell you, or advise you on other ways you could invest it. Land is considered to be an asset with the longest life. It cannot be depreciated. You can't account for its cost by gradually reducing its value. But the assets we can, and we'll touch on that a little later. The useful lifespan of land is considered to be eternal. So while it can't be depreciated, it definitely can be appreciated. Like we mentioned already, it's a long-term play. It can help you maintain and grow your wealth through this appreciation, the diversity in your portfolio with a long-term investment that can hedge against economic instability. Your land doesn't care what president is, what virus is out there. Everything still grows no matter what is going on with the economy around us. So again, just to bring this kind of home a bit, we're Caribbean Capital Group is proud to present this unique opportunity that we believe will deliver you a powerful combination of some cash flow, some depreciation, some long-term appreciation, and then the returns with the recent cacao prices. David will touch on later with what it's done. The yields are increasing because we're adding more cacao in every year and more are coming online, and then the projected growth in the short and long term. So who is this for? If you're looking to invest offshore for diversity, if you're looking to pass this down to family, to your kids, if you're interested to hold a passive income investment, we definitely conservatively underwritten this. David and I are very in line with the numbers here. We don't want to project numbers that we can't reach. We really over promise and we over deliver
Hopefully.
and under promise. I always get that. I shouldn't even say that anymore because I always get it mixed up. But we've already beat our expectation when we first started by a lot. And so we do change our numbers as we see things are growing. But we don't do it where it's so much where it's a pie in the sky, if you will. And this is an inflation hedge, especially in rocky times. So if any one of these or multiple of these, the more that boxes as this ticks, is definitely a deal I feel is worth you to consider. And then this is our wonderful team here that we'll talk about a little bit later as well. So Finca Chocolate is a 515 acre cacao, timber, and spice farm on the Bronco Road in the southern district of Belize. It's called the Toledo District. It's one of the two largest cacao farms in the country. And in the early 90s, the previous owner had it as a cattle ranch. So most of the trees were cut, and he left Belize in the early 2000s. And in 2015, David pulled together a small group of investors and purchased the farm, rehabilitated it, and rebranded it as Finca Chocolat. So Dave, you want to take this one? This is the
Sure.
only picture that is not of the farm, as you can tell. It's a cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. As Dave said, it's a little hard to capture 515 acres in one shot. But what I want to focus on here is that we're doing things a little bit different than many of the farms in Belize, in that we are focusing on an agroforestry regenerative agriculture method, which means that we are maximizing the return per acre by having a canopy of the hardwood trees. And we're going to get into more of this in depth specifically. But our canopy, the top level, are the hardwood trees that we're planting. The mid-story is the cacao, and the understory are the spices and lemongrass. So these all work in a symbiotic relationship with each other. The cacao needs the shade from the hardwood trees. The leaves from the cacao help regenerate the soil, and as they compost over time. And as I had said, it really does give us a way to return the most value we can per acre, rather than like some of the tree farms that you see focus on one crop, and it's really an efficient use of the land. Okay, so what's on the farm? You're going to hear us talk a lot tonight about cacao and hardwood trees. The hardwood tree that we're most focused on is locally called psalmwood. Its scientific name is Cordia aleadora. But in addition to those, I want to mention that we have other commercially viable crops, as well as some crops that we use internally on the farm. So they're commercially viable crops. We have cashew trees, we have lemongrass, which we'll talk about in depth. Vanilla, turmeric, and cardamom are spices that we are expanding now and growing out in more acreage. Banana and plantain, which we use during the fermentation of the cacao, as well as there are actually three types of um, hardwoods that we're focused on: the psalmwood, the rosewood, and barbajallote. We do focus primarily on the psalmwood because it's an easier tree to spawn in the nursery. And then we also plant mahogany trees at certain sections around the farm as designators from one point to another. But those trees are not really commercially viable for us because their commercial lifespan is about 90 to 125 years. So we'll all be dead by the time that it's time to harvest those, if they ever do. Other crops on site include soursop, breadfruit, coconut, achiote, pigeon pea, and bamboo. And we'll talk a little later about how we use some of these on the farm to have a circular model. So what we're doing is we're trying to add biodiversity back to the land here, and we're not doing it just because we like it. We're doing it because it truly does form a symbiotic relationship between the trees. And to be blunt, it's excellent for our marketing and sales. We can command a higher price because we are reforesting and we are capturing carbon, unlike many of the farms in Belize and Latin America, which are cutting forests and deforesting. We're doing the exact opposite, which allows us to sell into, like, the European market is moving towards farms having to prove that they are not deforesting in order to accept their products into the EU. We're using inputs to the soil like biochar, which we produce on site at Finca Chocolat. And we could talk for hours just about that, but I just want to touch on it that we are producing and using biochar, which is something almost unheard of in Belize, although it is happening a decent amount in the US these days. Next slide, please, Dave. Okay. Let's talk about the market overview a little bit. David talked about this. There are really two distinct markets for cacao. There's the fine flavor market, which we participate in. It's about 15% of the overall market for cacao. And then there's the commodity cacao market, which kind of has been making news lately with the price increases, which accounts for about 85% of the market overall. In 23 and 24, there were shortages, disease, and floods in Western Africa, where it's about 60%, 65% of the world's cacao is produced in Ivory Coast and Ghana. So that drove up the price of commodity cacao. significantly. If you look at the bottom chart, it's a 5-year chart. You can see in 2021, commodity cacao was selling around $2,000 a ton, somewhere around a little more than that, about $2,200, $2,300 a ton on average. In 24, cacao jumped up to an average price of around $8,000 a ton, so about a 4 times increase. This has been great for us, but in truth, even when the cacao markets were selling at $2,000 a ton or $2,200 a ton, we were selling at $6,000 a ton. So the fine flavor market has always mandated a multiple of the commodity market in pricing. So this has been fantastic that the prices have gone up, but I want to make the point that we don't need this pricing to continue. I think it will, and we can talk about that a little bit more. I think there's a slide here that we'll talk about that, but our pricing, and we'll get into this more later, even if the commodity market drops back down to 2,000, we would never sell for less than 6 a ton. Okay. Excuse me. Demand has far exceeded supply for the last 3 years in the world for cacao. The warehouse cacao is at the lowest point it's been in decades. Chocolate consumption has been increasing, supply has been diminishing, so of course price has been going up. We hit upon that. Excuse me. We have currently at Finca Chocolat over 115,000 cacao trees in cultivation. We add 15,000 cacao trees annually until we're going to be about 180,000 trees. So we have about 4.5 years left of planting before the whole 500, well, we're not going to plant 515 acres. Out of the 515, we'll plant about 460 acres. The remaining space will be some of the streams or roads or spaces that are not suitable for cacao. From 2026 on, we are having 15,000 trees that will reach maturity every year. So we're right on the cusp of starting to see the benefit of having been planting for the last couple of years. I mentioned this on the last slide. In 22 and 23, even when the prices were at $2,200 a ton, we were selling at above $6,000 a ton. In 24, we increased our average price to about $8,500 a ton. And in 25, we sold everything at nearly $10,000 a ton. I truly don't see, I think we'll have a moat for at least 4 to 5 years, because anyone who started planting last year or even 2 years ago, it takes cacao trees a minimum of 4 years to mature, even if they've been grafted, to produce at scale. And people really didn't start planting at scale at that point in time. The ones that did were kind of in the commodity market. So we plant at Finca Chocolat on a 10 by 12 grid, which puts about 400 trees per acre in. Might be 370 at some places and 410 in other, but it's a 400 average. As I said, we have 115,000 trees in cultivation today. Not all of them are mature, as it takes 5 years for trees to mature. Our average yield is about 1.5 pounds of cacao per tree. So if you want to do the math on that, you can. We grow a Trinitario, or ask me, I've got all the spreadsheets you could ever want to see, and we can talk about that in depth. We grow a Trinitario variety cacao, which is a fine flavor cacao, which allows us, as I talked about, to sell into that 15% of the market, which commands higher pricing. The commercial lifespan for cacao trees is approximately 30 years once they start producing. So in total, it's about 35 years from the time the seed germinates until you want to start replacing the tree. That really does depend, though, on the climate, the soil, the care that's gone into them. It might be 38, it might be 32, but you're looking around 35 years in total. 30 years from the time it's been planted. 30 years from the time it starts producing, and 35 or so from the time it actually was started in the bag in the nursery. Our annual harvest of mature cacao gives us cash flow on a yearly basis while we're waiting for the hardwoods to mature. So the cacao does bring us returns. It's the big play here, though, is truly the hardwood at the end of the day. But it's nice to not have to wait 25 years to start seeing some income and to cover our costs in the interim. Our harvest cycle runs from December to June, typically, and all of our post-harvest processing is done on site. So we ferment on site, we dry on site, we package, and we store, and we ship out ourselves. So we follow from the time that the tree spawns in the nursery until the time we send a bag to a customer. We can ensure the quality 100%. I want to go over this because not everyone is super familiar with how cacao trees grow over time. but we generally start our nursery every year in February or March. The first year they're planted out in August to November. So they're about 6 months in the nursery, and then we plant them out during the rainy season of the same year. In year two, there's no production on the trees. We do a structural pruning that takes place kind of at the end of year two or early in year three, and where there's a lot of weeding because the trees are small and they're not blocking out enough sun to control the weeds at that point. Year three, again, no significant production. You might get a few pods, but we're really focused on maintenance and pruning and weed control at that point in time. In year four, the trees begin to canopy, which means that they'll kind of reach together and form shade under them. Um, we're still doing a little bit of weed control at that point, but not as much, and the trees are starting to produce. By year five, the trees have completed their canopy and they're producing at near or full capacity. And then year 6 to 30, the trees are producing at full capacity. So this is why when I say we have 115,000 trees in the ground today, that number is super important, right? If you talk about people that say, I have 3,000 acres of cacao, it's meaningless unless they tell you how many trees there are per acre and how old the trees are. Keep that in mind. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Go ahead, Dave. Okay, our second current income stream on the farm is lemongrass. So the global lemongrass oil market is projected to grow to 48 to about 81 million in 2028, with almost a 10% CAGR for the same period. Like cacao, lemongrass is seen as a superfood with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory health benefits. We are not selling the lemongrass itself. We try to focus. Shouldn't say we try. We do focus on non-perishable goods that we can package and ship and hold over time. So what we do with lemongrass is primarily we distill it into an essential oil, which is used for soaps, cosmetics, and insecticide. I just kind of hit this point. It's non-perishable product with value-added processing that we can do on site at the farm. Although Dave Kafka did send me a picture of Walmart selling lemongrass plants for like $12.95 US, which made me very jealous. So maybe we should start doing that. We first tested the lemongrass on site in 2023. It's gone extremely well for us. We're selling local fresh lemongrass to a partner of ours, which is Nalito, which makes what they call a Fiva grass iced tea. Lemongrass in Belize is called Fiva grass. And the rest we are distilling and selling the essential oil in the tourism market locally. We're working with another farm in the area that does cruise tourism to provide them oil to sell to tourists. And we will be exporting soon.
Yeah, great. And so what we're doing is we're offering a 20% or not 20%, a $20,000 is investment per unit. We'll have 600 units total. We won't sell all 600. We'll keep, majority of them. And then the projected returns are 12 to 14%. Now, what's important with that $20,000 number is once you're invested, there's no additional cost, no hidden fees. When the trees reach their life expectancy at around year 30, they're going to be removed in a staged basis, and new trees will be planted. At that time, there might be an additional replanting fee, but we expect to pay that out of the existing cash flow at that time. The manager manages the farm, he pays the bills, harvests the crops, sells the cacao, and then the investors receive 80% return on their income after the expenses, and then a manager takes the 20%. We are offering a 3% a year for 3 years right now, but we will cancel that at the end of the year, and then the rest will be, whatever the farm makes. We'll also, after we sell 50 shares, and I think we're a little over halfway there.
We're at 35 right now, I think,
We're
Dave.
35. So we're definitely over halfway there. Then we're definitely going to go up on that amount and then come up with how many shares we'll sell. And then we'll probably go and David and I will get a group of investors and do this again, because we can still use all the infrastructure and all that here. Again, this is a long-term investment. So you can hand it down to your family. You can take title in your shares in any way you want, whether it's a self-directed IRA, it can be a trust, a company, your personal name, things like that. And the reviews we get are phenomenal. Um, David gets a lot of reviews, there's one from Spain. Thanks for the samples. I've just picked them up. They look great. Can't wait to process them. Um, the one in Florida, Maggie, wow, thank you. I just received the beans, cracked one open, popped it in my mouth. What a beautiful job you did. And then one of the biggest compliments is the reorders, right? Everybody that orders, last year bought this year. And then, they keep going on and putting orders in for this year. So the global market, this is more of a recap. The cacao market is projected to have a growth of 3.94% during 21 to 28. The market is estimated to reap a revenue of $187 billion by 2027. The rise of chocolate consumption is large because the demand is there. It's a superfood. Social media and advertising has changed people's mindsets about chocolate. President Carter was here, and they had a big article on that and how it's a superfood. During the pandemic, people became more health conscious because of uh, health. The health benefits of cacao, of true cacao. People are realizing that and buying more and wanting more. And a good chocolate has high cacao content, which is less sugarative and additives. It helps reduce blood pressure, lowers the risk of heart attack, stroke, and helps with symptoms of depression. Also, by 2050, the population is estimated to be 11.2 billion people. So more people are going to be wanting it. And so we at Finca is positioned to be a part of this solution of a growing market need in timber and in all the other spices and cacao that we're growing. Lumber from the tropical hardwoods is decreasing as the supply is being cut down and people are not replanting. So by us being sustainable, we're every time we'll cut down a tree, we'll plant one. So not to mention, every tree that we plant helps reduce the carbon footprint. Lemongrass oil, vanilla, cardamom, light cacao are high margin, non-perishable foods. So if we want to hold it, if the market goes down a little bit and we want to hold it till it comes back up, we can do that. If the price of timber is down, we can definitely, hold it. We don't have to cut it right away, and we can wait for it to go back up. So here's some of the products. This is finished cacao that
Yeah,
is
so that
stored.
was a container that we were sending to our distribution partner in the US, Meridian Cacao, who are based out of Oregon. We sent them another container this year. This was last year. They were packing that container. We just sent one out about 2 weeks ago as well. In the bottom left are cacao trees in the nursery. And then if anyone has not been on a cacao farm, the next picture beside it is the inside of a cacao pod, what it actually looks like. I'd encourage you guys to come visit and taste it for yourself because it's hard to describe the taste if you haven't had it yourself.
It's awesome.
This is a Cordialidora tree, a psalmwood tree. And that tree is about 2.5 years old at that point in time. That's our farm manager's favorite tree. I should say 2.5 years in the field. It was about 3 years old in total because it spent about 6 months in the nursery. To the right top are two vanilla in our nursery and vanilla that we're planting out under the cashew trees on the farm. We are at a stage right now with vanilla where we're basically letting it double every 6 months and mostly focusing on increasing the number of plants on the farm for the next 6 to 12 months before we start focusing on flowering and sale of actual vanilla. Bottom right is a small, I should have said this before, that's a small psalmwood tree. So that one was just planted in the field. The one to the left was 2.5 years later. So these things grow really fast in Belize. There's no winter, there's a 12-month growing season. As long as you tend to them a bit, they really will take off and do well. To the right is some of the lemongrass that we were splitting and replanting. We've gone from an initial couple acres of lemongrass to about 15 acres that we have in cultivation right now. I'll talk about this, Dave. So we did say that we sold 35 units at 20,000, which is about 700,000 US. Some of that gets used for Caribbean capital groups purposes to support us and keep things going a little bit on their end, but most of it goes to the farm. What we've every cent of that so far, and pretty much every cent of the whole 50 units that we intend to sell before we reevaluate what we're doing, is going right back into the farm. So what we've done with funds to date, we built a new fermentation facility in boxes, which are the top two pictures. We used to have a capacity of fermenting 4,000 pounds at a time. Right now, with our existing boxes, we can do 12,000 pounds at a time. So we tripled that. And this fermentation facility will allow us to do almost 48,000 pounds at once. So we probably won't use the whole capacity of this facility at any one point in time, but we can also use it for other, we'll probably get up to about 24,000 pounds at once in the next couple of years that we're fermenting at once. We added a new drying facility. It's funny, I changed the pictures. I don't have that on here, but we added a second drying facility that is bigger than the last one and allows us to then take the fermented cacao and dry it in a solar dryer slowly so that the quality is what our clients want. We've expanded our partner network, and what I mean by that is we've started working with other farms to, when the market dictates. We bought a lot of cacao in 2024 and sold it as a second line of not single origin cacao from our farm, but a Belizean kind of blend cacao. In 25, we didn't do that because there was someone that came in that was paying too much for cacao. But when it warrants it, we buy wet cacao, process it on site, and then resell it. In 24, we made about a 30% margin on it. In 25, we opted not to do that because honestly, someone who overpaid skewed the market a little bit. And now they're unfortunate. They have 20 tons of cacao they can't sell. They've asked us to try to help them, and we're going to let them wallow for a bit first. We built a distillation and cacao processing facility on site so we can distill the lemongrass we talked about a little bit earlier. And we put in a processing facility for the cacao. Not that we're processing this at scale, but this is kind of a lab level facility that allows us to process. We could do up to about 5 tons a year at this facility. Last year, we did about half a ton, which we put into samples and sent to the US of cacao derivatives. And what I mean by that is we did nibs, butter, powder, mass, which is 100% ground cacao, and then couverture of both 80% 80% couverture, 20% sugar, 80% cacao, and a 70% couverture, which we have worked with a chocolatier in the US to sell over the last year. That was extremely well received, and we'll talk a little bit how we're going to scale that up in the future. We put a new equipment barn in place. The equipment barn that was there was 30 years old and needed to be replaced. We did that. We bought a new F450 because we needed to be able to haul the wet cacao that we're buying, as well as things around the farm. The trailer that you see there actually is also a new dump trailer. We updated the irrigation on the farm by the nursery and the electrical systems on the farm, and we've hired additional staffing. If you can, I know these pictures are kind of small, they're hard to see, but you can always go and look at some larger pictures in more detail on our blog, which is listed there. Just click on field notes from Finca Chocolat.
I'll go ahead and take a picture of that, and you can go to the website. Also, I wanted to note, a lot of what we do, we crawl, walk, run. So we test it first, and then, we kind of see what the market, or see how it goes, see how the area is. So like in the, David, how much did we start out with? We started what, with a half acre, an acre of lemongrass, and
Yeah, we did
tested
about
it
an
out?
acre initially to test to make sure that it was going to be viable on the farm.
Right.
And it did extremely well. So now we're at about 14 acres.
Yeah. So we don't just go all in. We kind of test it. We did that with vanilla and things like that. So we don't just put a ton of money in one thing, and then if it doesn't work, we say, oh well. We always test it as well.
Do you want to talk about this, Dave, or me?
Go ahead.
Okay, so as David mentioned, the anticipated return on investment over the 25-year period is between 12 and 14%. And returns, the whole goal for me on this is, I'm old enough that I might not see a second iteration of this, but the returns are expected to continue in perpetuity, right? Um, I intend to lead this to my daughter. It's something that I'll be involved in for the rest of my life, and hopefully that she wants to be involved in. But either way, um, the hard work on the farm is really almost over. We've got about 2 more years, and then things just start flowing on a normal cycle. Vanilla and cacao derivatives are not included in the current financial projections. So the cacao itself is included, the raw cacao that we sell. I should say fermented cacao, not raw. But the nibs, the butter, the powder, and the couverture are not included in this 12%, nor is the vanilla um, as well. So the other thing that I really want to point out here is that this is a financial investment. It is for me, but it's also a social and environmental investment, right? We are truly reforesting an area that had been deforested, and more importantly, proving to our neighbors that it can work and that it can be viable. A lot of farmers in southern Belize, or in Belize in general, not just the South, follow what they call a slash and burn methodology, where they'll just go in, they'll chop out 4 or 5 acres of jungle, they'll plant corn, and they'll use that for 2 or 3 years until the land becomes fallow, and then they'll move on and they'll chop 3 or 4 more acres and just keep moving around. We're trying to show through this system of agroforestry that we're using, and using biochar and some more organic inputs, that you can get an excellent return without having to deforest. And it's taken us a decade, but our neighbors are actually starting to pay attention. So they're in the first 5 years, most of them said, "You guys are crazy. This is never going to work. I don't know why you're doing this. It's a waste of time. Just, move on like the Mennonites do. Take 100 acres, farm as much as you can out of it with or chemical fertilizers, and then move on." The other thing that we're doing here is creating jobs in the area. Southern Belize is one of the higher areas for unemployment in Belize. So we're creating long-term steady employment for families that is really needed in this area. And so it gives, for me, that is as important as the financial return, honestly. It also doesn't hurt that we do this on the marketing side, because these are the things that our customers want to see, right? And I mentioned this, it's a model for successful regenerative agricultural practices. What we're still looking to do, what we're looking to do with the next 15 acres worth of sales, is increase our drying capacity. So we increased our fermentation capacity substantially. We can make do with what we have, but I'd like to see 2 more drying houses. I'd like to expand our partner network even further, as long as we can do so at a profitable rate. Purchasing equipment, there's tractors we have are a little old, so we'll probably purchase a new tractor in the next year or two. I'd like to install a fuel depot, a small one on site. Preparing areas for vanilla. This is something that we're working with nature here. You'll see a lot of vanilla farms will go in and they'll put in steel structures with shade cloth. We're trying to work on, like we had said earlier, more of an agroforestry system where we use existing trees, not the cacao, because vanilla interrupts cacao flowering and therefore the return from cacao trees, but other trees that we can plant vanilla on throughout the farm. And we've been doing that now for the last couple of years, while we double the number of trees on site the number of vanilla vines on site every 6 months. Will also import more vanilla vines from Mexico once we really go to scale this up. I would love to see us invest in a solar system. Belize's electrical grid is a little bit spotty at times, so it would be super nice for us to have. It's also expensive. The electricity in Belize is 17 cents a kilowatt hour, or 17.5 a kilowatt hour, which is one of the higher rates in Central America. So investing in solar if we move more into processing, really does make sense. Hiring and training more teams, both for cacao and vanilla, to be honest with you. But vanilla will be our main focus, because our cacao team we kind of have established, but we're always bringing on a person or two here and there where we need them. And this is a big one: more rapidly plant the remaining acreage. For the hardwood trees and the cacao, we know exactly what we're doing. It's been a number of years that we've been involved in this. This is the one area, like David said, we start small to make sure it works, but once we know it works, we are trying to finish the process as quickly as possible, since it does take 4 or 5 years for them to start producing. And then this is a big one for us. If we go above 50 units sold, this will be the next big thing that we invest in, is a HACCP certified processing and storage facility on site, where we will process not only our own cacao, but that of our neighbors. And we will probably, if we can work it out at the same time financially, put in a freeze-dried fruit powder section to the factory, as there's just literally tons and tons of fruit in Belize that goes to waste every year. And then, as David alluded to, gaining economies of scale. As things go well, and thankfully they have been going well, we might turn around and do this again because we have the infrastructure, we have the knowledge. We can take on another couple hundred acres pretty easily with the infrastructure that we're putting here at Finca Chocolat. And I want to make this point: Finca has no outstanding debt. We've never taken any debt. We have customers right now in North America, Central America, and Asia. We had a European customer. I've kind of pulled out of that market for now just because the demand is too much. We don't have enough supply to meet it. We're cash positive now, and we will be profitable in the next year and a half as the trees mature. Okay. Growth plans, what we're doing right now. We talked about this a bit. We're expanding into vanilla. Again, like the other products that we produce, it can be dried and stored, so spoilage is not an issue. It closely corresponds, the customers are almost the same as cacao for us. So there's nominal extra marketing costs for us. We have people all the time asking us, when are you going to start selling me vanilla? Right? They buy our cacao and they want vanilla. They're just waiting for us to do it. There is no one really producing vanilla at scale in Belize currently. So with a little bit of extra funding, we can really make an interesting splash in that market. As I said, we're doubling vines every 4 to 6 months currently. That'll continue through 2026. And by the end of 2026, we'll have enough vines on site that we will start growing them out for flowering. As I mentioned earlier, vanilla has not been added to the financial projections, so that should increase our 12%, 12 to 14%. Again, value-added cacao products. We talked about this a little bit. We won a Caribbean Export Development Agency grant back in 2023, which we purchased all the equipment with. In 2025, we processed cacao with a chocolatier from the US. I brought that to Asia. We'll talk about that a little bit, and we've sold that in the US to kind of test the market. In 2026, we will most likely not do that again for the US. We'll probably establish a tolling relationship with a company in the US to meet the demand that we've generated from 25. And we're working with the European chocolatier to do the same thing in the European market. So we have someone that'll be coming down basically February to May to process cacao on site at our lab and then bring that back to Europe to introduce our products to the European market. Local partner and local sales, we talked about this a little bit as well. We're buying from 100, anywhere from 20 to 100 farmers annually, depending on the market of that year. And we're selling fresh lemongrass, banana, and plantain locally. Although honestly, the returns on that they're there, but they're nominal. They're not going to make or break this investment. Thank you. So long term, it really is the hardwood trees that we're looking to. And as Dave said, we're not going to cut down 500 acres of hardwoods at one point in time. We're going to probably take out 15 to 20 acres a year and then replant, each of that over a 10-year period, 10 to 15-year period of time. We are focusing almost exclusively now on Cordia aleadora. The Barba Jolote is a beautiful tree. It's a high-priced tree. It also is 25 years to maturity. The rosewood is one of the more expensive trees in the world. But Barba Jolote and rosewood, while we planted them the first 3 years, are a little bit finicky to grow in the nursery. So we're really focused on the Cordia aleadora now. We have what I feel is a decent number of Barba Jolote and rosewood on site. And they're just not worth the extra energy for the return that goes into it right now. David mentioned this also. When it's time for the trees to mature, we will take out the cacao and the hardwood in that one area at the same time, so that we're not damaging the cacao trees. Salmwood, if you're not familiar with it, you can look up pictures of it online, but it grows to about 114 feet. It matures in 20-25 years. And as we talked about, rosewood is one of the more expensive woods in the world. But we've got about 2,000 rosewood trees on site right now. And we're probably not going to focus more on that at the moment. That is a salmwood tree on the right there. The farm layout. I want to go over this. Everything that you see in green is planted with hardwoods and cacao. It's the mature area of the farm that we're harvesting cacao from right now. And what we're selling off of at the moment. The blue area is planted with lemongrass and hardwoods. We'll probably scatter some lemongrass around different areas as well as we expand the oil production in that if demand warrants. The yellow area was planted in 2021. There's one, two, three, four, five grids that you see there that are yellow. Those will be maturing in 26. So, starting in 26, we're going to have additional cacao coming online for about 7 to 8 tons annually every year. It's about 7 tons. The purple triangles with the little hash 22 there, we planted in 22, 23 and 24 are kind of self-explanatory. So, the stuff we planted in 22 will come online in 27, 23 will be 28, 24 will be 29, and so on. The brown area is where salmwood trees have already been planted. It's the formerly cleared cattle ranching areas in preparation to plant cacao under it, because we're going to finish planting the canopied area that you see over on the right by mid 2026. We're going to plant a lot of it this year. There'll be a little bit left in 26, and then we'll start putting cacao under the Cordialeadora, under the salmwood trees in 26. And the, excuse me, the white area that you see kind of that's the north end of the farm, we're planting hardwood trees in there now so that by 20, what is this, 25, by 28, 29, we'll be able to move into those areas. Okay, the whole farm is 515 acres, as we talked about. I think this is something we haven't talked about a lot in the past, but this is important. It's becoming increasingly important, actually, because the government of Belize has been increasingly promoting exports. They have had an investment summit the last couple of years, and thankfully we have an excellent relationship with them. It's nice to be one of the government's dog and pony shows, because it draws a lot of attention to us. It's gotten us a few extra clients that we might not have gotten on our own. They nominated us for what's called an Earthshot Prize in 2023 and 2024. It was a grant for $1 million from the British government. To be honest, we can't scale as much as they want, but it was nice to be nominated. We were a guest speaker at the Belize Investment Summit in 2023. We were chosen and sponsored. What I mean by sponsors, they paid for us to go to the Latin American Flavors Conference in Brazil in 2024. This was a surprise, actually. They designated us as the green economy representative in December of 2024. So we're on the cover. I usually like to stay in the background, but when they asked if we wanted to be on the cover of the Belize Invest magazine, I thought that was probably a good play. So we did it. We're part of the Belize Investment Portfolio, which is an ongoing program by them to introduce shovel-ready projects or ongoing projects to investors interested in Belize. And they love us because we are not shovel ready. We're well past shovel ready. Most of the projects that they're repping are people with a dream, but no implementation. We've been implementing now for 10 years. And again, we were sponsored to go to the Taiwan International Food Show last June. And we are working with a couple ministers right now, Minister of Interior, Minister of Agriculture, to put together what they're calling the Cacao Council to increase cacao exports from Belize.
Yeah, so what we're doing is I'd say maybe 25% of the people want to come and that have invested want to come and check out the farm, but 75% that have already invested, are good with what they see and the pictures and the updates we give them. But once a year we do this tour where it's 4 days, 3 nights, discovery tour, and just talk about it a little bit. It's a little bit of rest and relaxation. We stay at one of my other investments, which is Mariposa Beach Resort. And then what we do is we pay for your round trip airfare from Belize City to Placencia. And we take care of all your food, your local alcohol, your sodas. We do either a snorkeling trip or a hike of some sort. We tour the farm. We do a chocolate experience where we have a Mayan come in and how the Mayans made chocolate. We can do a Mayan archaeological tour. The last tour we did, they opted not to do the archaeological tour. They wanted to do the spice farm tour. So we did that. Transportation to the farm, the fuel, all that. It's $9.97 a person. And we set the only, for now, it's pretty much the only tour for the year of 2026 is February 11th through the 15th. If you can't make it, we can make arrangements to take you down there. And if you're already in Belize and you want a private tour, we can do that. But a curated where we kind of teach you about real estate, teach you about the area. We do that, it'll be February 11th through the 15th. Um, we have probably 5 rooms, 6 rooms that we can do. And so all you got to do is pay for your hotel. Because I own the hotel, we can get you a discount and your
But you don't have
airfare
to
to
stay at David's
the city.
hotel.
Yeah, no, you don't. But we recommend it.
It's great. I
It's a
recommend
great
it
place.
highly, but yes.
So it's pretty cool. And this time of year, you'll see some uh, you'll see some guys that are going to be at the nursery. You'll see some harvesting going on, possibly some drying going on, some fermenting. So it's a perfect time to be there. The weather is, it's gorgeous in January and February. So we would love to have you. And Serena will put the link, and I can't see the link because I'm sharing right now, but she'll put it in the chat. Or you can reach out to me at David Caribbean Capital Group. Um, the farm tour is there. If you want to take a picture of that, so we thank you for enjoying, for attending. The PPM and the business plan you can reach out to us if you're ready to move forward. If you have questions, um, we're happy to answer those questions. But this is for accredited investors only, for U.S. persons in the U.S. And so I'm going to stop sharing. Again, this is my contact. I pretty much do all the investor relations, the tours, and things like that with the investors. And David focuses on the farm, the managing of the farm, and the selling of the product. And then, we have ideas. We meet, once a week, every 2 weeks, depending on when we're needed to communicate. He's down all the time. I'm down at the farm all the time taking pictures. And then our farm manager and the team really makes this a true win for everyone because of the team down there. They're such hard workers. And Rupert, the farm manager, he's a typical Belizean. Once you meet him, you'll fall in love with him. How nice he is, how awesome he is, and his knowledge is just is just off the charts. So we'd love to have you come down and visit the tour.